Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is solving two-step equations. So these are equations that involve not just one operation, but this time two of them. If we look at each equation, the thing you want to keep in mind is that PEMDAS is our guiding principle for evaluating expressions. It tells us what order of operations to go in. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, the parentheses, exponent, multiply, divide, add, and subtract. But when you're solving equations, it's like you're unwrapping a present. You're working backwards to figure out what that variable is standing for. So in that case, we're actually going to go reverse the order of operations. So that means you're going to start with addition and subtraction step. Then you're going to move on to the multiplication or division step. And if there's any exponents or parentheses, you'll worry about that. But in this case, you will just follow that because we only have the multiply, divide, add, and subtract for now. Okay, so with your first equation, you've got two operations involved. You've got the 3 times p, since those are right next to each other. And you've also got the plus 1. So we're going to start with our addition and subtraction step. Our equal sign is still our balance point, so we have to keep that in mind as well. If we are starting with what we're adding or subtracting from our variable, which is the number 1, we're going to be doing the opposite operation. So we will want to subtract 1 from both sides of our equation. When we do that, 1 minus 1 is 0, so that's going to cancel. That's the whole reason why we're doing it. And all we're left with over here is 3p. Now on the other side, we have 10 minus 1 because we had to keep it balanced by doing it on both sides. So that's going to give us 9. Now I have 3p equals 9. So this is now a one-step equation. It only involves multiplication. So in order to solve, we have to do the opposite. So we will be dividing by 3 to get p totally by itself on that side of the equation. And we have p equals, and 9 divided by 3 would give us 3. Now again, we can substitute for the variable in our original equation to make sure that that answer does work. So we would do 3 times 3 plus 1. And if we type that in our calculator or figure out what that is going to give us 10. So we know our answer is right. For the second one, again, we've got two operations involved in our equation. This time the variable happens to be on the right side of the equal sign. That does not matter. All that matters is to solve, we're trying to get that variable by itself on one side or the other. Doesn't matter which. Okay, so if we want to try to get that f by itself, first we're going to start with our addition and subtraction step. So if this is minus 1 that's being subtracted from the variable term, that means I need to be adding 1 to both sides in order to cancel that out. So negative 1 plus 1 is 0. That's going to cancel. And we have 3 plus 1 is 4 on the left side. And we still have the f over 6 on the right side. Now keep in mind that when you have a fraction, that operation is division. So in order to get rid of this divided by 6, we will do the opposite, which means we will multiply by 6 on both sides of our equation. All right, 6 times 4 gives us 24. And when you multiply and divide by the same value, that cancels because 6 divided by 6 is 1. And here we just have f, the variable, equals 24. And again, if we entered in our calculator, 24 divided by 6 minus 1, it would give us 3, and that's how we would know that our answer is correct. Okay, so moving down to the third one, again, we've got two operations involved. This one is a little bit different just because when you have a fraction involved, if there's something on the top, we can't get rid of that or split it apart until we get rid of this denominator at the bottom, because both of these are being divided by negative 7. So in that case, we're going to have to start with the multiplication and division step. Since this is being divided by negative 7, we are going to cancel that out by doing the opposite. Let's multiply by negative 7. When we multiply by negative 7 on both sides, that's going to cancel. So all I'm left with is the m minus 73 on the left. And negative 2 times negative 7 would give me a positive 14 on the right side. Now I have a one-step equation, so I'm ready to just add 73 to both sides, since that's the opposite of subtracting. And I have m by itself like I wanted it, and that would give me 87 for my solution. Again, I could plug it in. 87 minus 73 then divide by -7, and it will give you -2. Finally, for the last one, you still have two operations. This time you're adding a -2r to positive 0.3. So let's start by getting rid of this other term that doesn't have the variable in it. So since this is a positive 0.3, I need to subtract that value from both sides because positive plus a negative of the same value equals 0. So now I have just the -2r on the left side, and that's going to give me -6.8 on the right side. And finally, for my very last step, and this is -2 times r, so I need to do the opposite. I will be dividing by -2 on both sides of my equation, and I get r equals negative divided by a negative will give you a positive, and that would be 3.4. Don't be afraid of fractions or decimals. Sometimes they happen, and that's okay. Now, if I plug in 3.4 up here, in my calculator, I would type in 0.3 plus -2 times 3.4, and sure enough, it would give me -6.5, so I would know my answer was correct.